On a cold September night in 1327, England's former king lay chained in a damp cell in Berkeley Castle. Just months earlier, Edward II had ruled a kingdom. Now he was a prisoner, disgraced, isolated, and at the mercy of his enemies. Sometime after midnight, two men slipped into his room. They didn't bring the axe or sword typical of royal executions. Instead, they carried something far stranger and far more cruel. By morning, Edward II was dead. Officially, his death was recorded as natural causes. Unofficially, a story began to spread that would become one of the most notorious legends in medieval history: the murder of a king with a red-hot iron designed to leave no trace on his body. History still debates what really happened that night, but the mix of power, betrayal, and mystery makes this one of the most haunting royal stories ever told. Subscribe for more dark history tales. Edward II was born on April 25, 1284, in Caernarfon, Wales, the fourth surviving son of Edward I, a feared warrior king known as the Hammer of the Scots, and Queen Eleanor of Castile. Fate made him heir only after the deaths of his older brothers. Where his father thrived on military campaigns and political maneuvering, Edward preferred swimming, rowing, crafts, and spending time with commoners. Chroniclers claimed he enjoyed farm work and manual labor, pastimes that baffled the court. From an early age, one relationship would define his life: his close and highly controversial friendship with the young nobleman Piers Gaveston. When Edward I died in 1307, his 23-year-old son became king, and one of his first acts shocked the nobility. He recalled Piers Gaveston, whom his father had exiled, and made him Earl of Cornwall, a title traditionally reserved for royal family members. Gaveston was also given treasures from the royal collection and even carried St. Edward's crown at the coronation, an unheard-of privilege for someone outside the bloodline. To many nobles, Gaveston's influence was dangerous. To Edward, it was indispensable. The exact nature of their relationship remains debated, but its political cost was already mounting. In 1308, Edward married Isabella, the 12-year-old daughter of France's powerful King Philip IV, a political alliance meant to secure peace between the two kingdoms. But during the lavish wedding celebrations, Edward's attention barely left Gaveston. Even the jewels meant for his new queen somehow ended up in Gaveston's possession. For Isabella, the humiliation was public and unforgettable. For England's nobles, it was another sign that the king's personal loyalties were eclipsing his royal duties. The nobility's patience ran out. Led by Thomas, Earl of Lancaster, they demanded Gaveston's exile again and again. Each time, Edward brought him back. In 1312, the cycle ended violently. Gaveston was captured, stabbed, and beheaded on a roadside. Edward was devastated and swore revenge, but political reality forced him into a tense truce with the very men who had murdered his closest companion. Edward's grief over Gaveston didn't change his governing style. Soon, a new favorite rose to power: Hugh Despenser the Younger, alongside his father. The Despensers quickly became the most powerful figures in England, using their influence to seize lands, crush rivals, and enrich themselves. Queen Isabella, now an adult and politically aware, found herself sidelined and openly hostile toward the Despensers. Her resentment toward them soon extended to her husband. By 1325, the marriage had collapsed into a cold political standoff, setting the stage for an even more dangerous alliance. In 1325, Isabella was sent to France on a diplomatic mission. She refused to return as long as the Despensers held power, and instead formed an alliance with Roger Mortimer, a powerful exiled nobleman who had escaped from the Tower of London. Their partnership was political, romantic, and aimed squarely at Edward's downfall. In September 1326, Isabella and Mortimer invaded England with a small force. To Edward's shock, most nobles and towns welcomed them as liberators. The king fled west with the Despensers but was quickly captured. Hugh Despenser the Younger met a gruesome public execution, dragged, hanged, castrated, disemboweled, and finally beheaded. By January 1327, Edward was forced to abdicate in favour of his 14-year-old son, Edward III, becoming the first English monarch formally deposed by his own people. At first, Edward's captivity was relatively comfortable, but in April 1327 he was moved to Berkeley Castle under the watch of Thomas Berkeley, John Maltravers, and Thomas Gurney. Conditions quickly deteriorated. Accounts suggest he was kept in filthy surroundings, exposed to the cold, and even forced to ride without pants to cause painful sores. These measures seemed designed to break him down and hasten his death from natural causes, shielding Isabella and Mortimer from direct blame. Yet Edward proved resilient. Rumours of rescue plots began to circulate, and when it became clear he wouldn't die quickly enough, a more permanent solution was allegedly put in motion. The most famous version of Edward II's death comes from chroniclers writing decades later, most notably Geoffrey le Baker around 1350. According to this account, the assassins immobilized Edward, inserted a hollow horn into his anus, and pushed a red-hot iron rod through it, burning his internal organs without leaving visible marks. His screams, the story goes, were muffled with pillows. The symbolism was clear to medieval audiences, a cruel punishment tied to Edward's alleged homosexual relationships. It was gruesome, memorable, and possibly propaganda spread during Edward III's reign to vilify his father's killers. Many historians doubt the red-hot iron story. A simpler method, like suffocation with pillows, would have left no marks and been far easier. Some go further, suggesting Edward may not have died at Berkeley at all. A mysterious Fieschi letter from 1333 claims he escaped, swapped places with a corpse, and lived in exile as a hermit in Italy. In 1338, a man calling himself William the Welshman appeared at the court of the Holy Roman Emperor, claiming to be the deposed king. Most scholars remain skeptical, but the doubt has never fully faded. After taking control in 1330, Edward III turned against his mother and Mortimer. Mortimer was executed, Maltravers fled into exile, and Gurney was hunted down. Officially, they were blamed for the king's death. The story of Edward II's fate spread quickly, influencing literature, plays, and political thought. Christopher Marlowe's Edward II in the late 1500s cemented him in cultural memory as a tragic ruler undone by passion and political betrayal. His forced abdication set a dangerous precedent in English history, that a monarch could be lawfully removed. In the centuries that followed, kings like Richard II and Henry VI would face similar fates, proof that royal power was not beyond challenge. Edward II was given a royal funeral in December 1327 at Gloucester Cathedral, where his ornate tomb still stands. The embalming process made it impossible to confirm how he died, or even if the body was truly his. For some, the mystery adds to his legend. Was he murdered in the castle, or did he vanish into Europe to live out his days in obscurity? Whether Edward II died in agony from a red-hot iron, by quieter means, or lived in exile, his story endures because it sits at the crossroads of personal desire and political ruthlessness. He was a king who defied the expectations of his age and paid the ultimate price. His tomb shows a serene monarch, but the legend tells of betrayal, humiliation, and a brutal end. Nearly 700 years later, the mystery of Edward II reminds us how power can be won, lost, and rewritten in the pages of history.